Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Happy Monday. My name is Katie Gideon, and I will be the on-camera facilitator for our Monday morning social. We are so glad that you're here. I want to give a huge shout out to our co-facilitator who you've already seen in the chat. That is going to be Jen O. Indeed, I am back stateside. It is so weird to be hosting one of these events in the daylight and like the early morning daylight, which is very different than the like afternoon daylight and obviously the middle of the night. But I am definitely glad to be back. I am still having to kind of adjust my circadian rhythm, but it is getting there. But I am dialing back from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we were the former Team Texas because I did relocate from Texas, but I will be in Oklahoma for a bit, and it's always great to be here. But I love seeing all of our returning socialers. It is so great to see all of you in the chat, especially with this kind of very kind of staple Monday morning crowd. But if there is anybody that is new, welcome. We are glad that you're here. And as always, the reminder is that you can participate in as much or as little of this social as you want. If you want to participate in the chat, just make sure that it is set to everyone. That goes to the larger Silk and Sonder family. The host and panelist comes to just myself and Jen, which is always fine. We're happy to answer questions or maybe something a little bit more sensitive. We always enjoy have that as an option. But this morning, you can absolutely just sit and work on your journal, or maybe you want to sit and really just engage in the chat. Or if the music is too much or I am too much, you can mute me and not participate in that. But we are just glad that you're here exactly as you are to work on the full week 1 of April. And as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions, though we do like to talk about our products, and we know that a lot of you all like to connect on other apps outside of Silk and Sonder, and we love that. But at the same time, let's just keep it to a minimum so as to not detract from the setup event that we're here to do. And then while Jen and I have some information, we will most likely redirect your specific customer care inquiries to our headquarter team, hello@silkandsonder.com. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. The framing that I like to add to this is if you have had a day, if you had a week, if you kind of just rolled out of bed like I did, you may not be quite up to speed yet to really tackle some of the deeper meanings, kind of some of those other standard things, and that is okay. There is no journal police. There is no right or wrong way to journal. I will also say that the mind map question today is a little bit tricky if you're not quite in a focusing mood. I have certainly struggled with trying to do it, and that's okay. We have the whole week to adjust them. So do not add any added pressure to yourself of having to get everything done right now. You have set this time aside for you. So take what you need, take what you want, and then you can always come back to these throughout the week or even at a later date. So we are moving into our new theme for April, and it is awareness. And I love already that it is an alliteration connection. I love it when the themes match the letter of the month because I think I just have a more fond memory for those just because I have tricked my brain into really appreciating the alliterations and being fascinated with it. So I really love that. And then this was a quote that I liked, and it was self-awareness is our capacity to stand apart from ourselves and examine our thinking, our motives, our history, our scripts, our actions, and our habits and tendencies. And I think this is an immensely valuable tool to have. But I do think there's a fine line between it being productive and it being destructive. Because anytime we start talking about the self-talk, the self-chat, the self-evaluation, that is when I tend to take the, angrier, harsher approach instead of the kinder, gentler that I certainly would save for friends and family and kind of people outside of my own head. But I do think it is a really genuinely valuable idea when it comes to the self-awareness. And we always joke about kind of reading the room because the way I kind of think and play back these scenarios is that I am sitting there watching myself almost like a director, watching how it's going and wanting to do feedback and those type of things. And it becomes just that weird sensation because then you're like, why did you say that? Oh no, stop, don't do that. No, read the room, Katie, walk away, walk away. So I feel like it's that type of awareness that is helpful, but also trying to strike that balance between helpful and, like you said, and destructive. And I think that is something that I am certainly going to kind of take a look at because I do think that's always an important component of just, existing with friends, certainly in a professional setting, being able to take feedback. But if you had listened to any of Bailey's socials, she was talking about even having certain feedback in that type of context. You need to know who is giving you that feedback. Where is that coming from them? Is it a place of helpful? Is it a place of unhelpful? Is there a time frame on it? All of those things. So all of those capacities do come into the whole kind of awareness capacity. But it's certainly something that I want to continue to focus on because I just find that I tend to be a little bit happier, a little bit easier to work with when I am kind of on this kind of self-awareness component where it's realizing, what can you control? What can't you control? What is a scenario that you can make adjustments toward, or what are scenarios that it's like, well, we're just going to be a bit at an impasse and it's like we're never going to be, best friends or great friends, but we will be, appropriate work colleagues. But do keep in mind with that self-awareness can be productive, but don't let it be destructive. And so now we're going to move into that awareness mind map, and then we will do our rosebud thorn exercise on page 30 in your April journal. And then we'll move into those weekly setup pages, which are going to be page 32 and 33. Don't worry, I will cue those as we get a little bit closer. And as always, please let us know if you want to see different examples, different slides, and we'll make that happen. So the very first April mind map question is amazing. And so find a blank page in your journal. And some people will use the weekly scratch pad. Some will use the first blank note page. Some will use the definition page. And I know we have quite a few of team back page, which is on page 60. Because the mind maps are not printed in your journal, it is certainly your opportunity to get a little bit creative and design something that fits your aesthetic or maybe added your motivation. I love covering mine with stickers because I got a little fed up with myself of hoarding stickers, so I've tried to use it that. I know Jen has used some of her really favorite cookie cutters for these type of stencils, but it can be something very simple or it can be kind of a full-blown, almost like inspirational scene to help with this because each week, we're going to peel back a new layer to our theme and kind of see what's underneath. And so with week one, we're going to focus on a sensory grounding exercise, which I think is a really great way to kick off awareness. And so we often move through our days without noticing the tiny wonders all around us. Take a moment to close your eyes and take a few breaths. You're going to tune into your body and your senses. What is one thing you notice that you usually aren't aware of? And is there anything you can express gratitude for? And so I've taken those questions and they're listed on the left, and then my mind map is on the right. This is a style that I have just embraced. It goes back to one of the December ones where I really got obsessed with Christmas lights. So then ever since then, I've kind of done this style and then gone full blown into the stickers. And so as we're kind of taking that moment to close our eyes and take some deep breaths, and noticing kind of what we're aware of, or what we aren't aware of, I think the really nice added connection is how can you express gratitude for it? And so I know that this one can be a bit challenging if you just aren't feeling it. Like I said, that was where I was just having a really hard time of just being present, turning off all of the brain waves and all of those things. So I made it a little tricky. And so I had to kind of step away from everything and have just really a moment of sitting without anything in front of me and just have that moment of clarity. And so that was where I would recommend you can certainly try this again when you're focused or maybe need an opportunity to come back to present because it is a great grounding exercise. It is certainly something that I know is recommended, especially with if you have, if you run into an anxious moment or an overstimulated moment, it is the kind of sit, the calm, touch into what do you see, what do you hear, what do you taste, what do you feel? And same thing with Jen is going to provide a really good article on a kind of a 5 4 3 2 1 method. And so really for me in this particular situation, when I kind of stepped away to do it, was I really noticed the sun. And I had been in the UK for the last 3 years, and I did see the sun, but I didn't see it nearly as much as like every morning when I wake up. And same thing with the birds are much louder, much closer, because I was in kind of a city center high rise type thing, which was great. It was wonderful, but it's just different than having like a nice yard out here. So those were kind of the things that I was really tuning in on. But then at the same time, I've also realized that I am still in like schedule mode and planning mode because I have just kind of some open-ended time frames. And so I was really having to fight that and turn that off because I just found it really hard because I was planning 5 or 6 steps ahead when it was like, no, you need to stop, stand still for a minute and think about what you're doing right in this moment. So that's where I think it's a great exercise. So I am going to go back to this slide. And again, we are working on our April mind map. This is week 1. And as always, if you show up late or have to leave a little bit early, these are recorded and you can usually get questions like this in the Silk and Sonder app to kind of catch up. But at the same time, you don't have to do them all if you miss them. Do not treat this as homework because it's not. This is just an opportunity for you to sit and let's ground ourselves using those senses. And we'll see you soon. because if you've attended any of Jen K's events, she is what I think is amazing for the kind of deep breathing, kind of quiet moments. I don't know if it's like the buttery voice, but I think that I always think of her when it's those type of really nice things. But I just like the added layer of being able to not only sit and be present, but then take it that next step of why you can be excited about it. I absolutely related to Trixie with the being remembering when it's nice to breathe when you're stopped up or allergies, but also seeing some of the tougher ones, especially around some of that work-life balance. Monica kind of having to realize and make those changes and adjustments of just difficult circumstances. But thank you everybody for sharing. And this really is a very underrated exercise, in my opinion, of trying to kind of ground yourself and be present. And I do think it's because we can get so distracted with anything and everything. And even I think it was someone else that mentioned and kind of drowning out some of the uh, at least so I'm fully aware that this can just be challenging. Same thing with wanting to be able to, go on a walk without a music or without a podcast. It was like I could never. And so I know it's become such a reliability for me on needing to have some sort of background, something, be it white noise. And so maybe that'll be something I take another look at. But thank you everybody for sharing. And you can continue to share. But we're now going to turn to page 30 in your April journal for our rosebud thorn exercise. This is another one of those really, I think, powerful but simple reflections because it is your opportunity to look at the highs, the lows, and everything in between that you experienced last week and add kind of a intentional decision to it. Is it something that you're going to continue to like pull into the next week, or are you just going to acknowledge that it happened and move on from it? Or is it something that you can continue to get excited about or look forward to? But I love the structure because at the same time, we all know that we experience those roses, buds, and thorns each week. So at least giving it a moment to write it down with that power of pen to paper, to have its moment, but then you get to decide what type of energy you're going to take from it or how you're going to move to the next week. So the rose is going to be a highlight, something that made you happy, that made you smile, that was fun, that you enjoyed, kind of the type of high that you had for that week. For me, I went and saw Eliza Telsinger, who is a comedian. I love her. She has a great millennial sense of humor that speaks to my little heart. But what was really fun is I took my sister along with me. And we did dinner beforehand and had a really lovely time and then got to see the show. And I don't think even we were joking when was the last time that she and I had done something together. Because anytime she would come and visit me, we would usually do something like that. So it was really fun and very reminiscent of that. But we had a really great time. Like I said, I think she's hilarious. So we thoroughly enjoyed it, which is always nice. It was easy, and that also makes it great. Your bud is going to be something that you're looking forward to, an emerging opportunity, something that is out on the horizon, something that can be a possibility, or something that you maybe need to decide. Could it be a rose? Could it be a thorn? And either kind of get ready for what type of response is going to be needed. As it was mentioned, I had moved back to the US and I am staying with my parents in Oklahoma. So I'm really excited about doing that because there's all those things that you get to do. Other things that I got really excited about with just kind of Hint water bottles. I love Hint. That was something I couldn't get over there. So it's everything from just like the random groceries, the random places to go, the random events that I can do. You just kind of miss out on. And usually I was here in the winter for Christmas, so it had been a while since I had had spring here, which the thorn in that is allergies. Oklahoma allergies are absolutely going to break me probably because I just haven't had allergies in a while. But it's certainly something to look forward to. And then the thorn is going to be a challenge, something that, was maybe a speed bump, maybe a roadblock. Or the way I've kind of reframed it is I tend to dwell on the negative. So calling it like the like pinnacle negative that I had that week just kind of encouraged me to hyperfixate on it. So I've now turned that kind of phrase into what is something that is taking up too much time, energy, and effort on you. And that can be, the mind, body, soul, but it's just something that is just taking too much away from your roses and your buds. And right now, the time zones, the circadian rhythm does not exist yet. My meal times are kind of off because of when I'm hungry, when I'm not hungry. I get really tired in the early evening, and then I'm wide awake at like 3 a.m. So it's just still been a bit of a struggle, which I thought I would have bounced back a little bit quicker, but I'm going to give myself grace, and I've got another probably week or so before I would say I'm truly back in a particular time zone. But again, we are on page 30 in your April journal, and we would love to celebrate your roses, get excited for those buds, and just add some extra thought, prayers, strength to those thorns. So I am going to turn on some music and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Like I said, it's always a fun snapshot, especially with a lot of our returning socialers within our community, that you get to see just those really lovely glimpses of what everyone is experiencing and what perspective they're experiencing from the roses, the buds, and the thorns. And then you get a couple of I think they're kind of fun, magical weeks where, your roses, buds, and thorns all tend to kind of come around the same situation. But thank you everybody for sharing. And even as we move through the social, please feel free to continue to share or respond to the previous prompts. We are unfortunately on a bit of a timeline. And so now we're going to move into those weekly setup pages, which are going to be page 32 and 33 in your April journal. And I always like to just kind of frame the weekly setup with this idea of take what you need from this week. Because maybe what you need is exactly as written in that, and maybe you need to connect some of those pieces, or maybe you don't need to connect those pieces for extra support. Maybe what you need is a completely repurposed, revamped, new inspiration, change all of the things on all of the pages. And sometimes maybe what you need is a break, because as we are aware, the weeks are different. This week is very different than a week that you would have in October or a week in December. And especially around the holidays, a holiday week, I feel like is always a different week, whether it's a short week or not. Those are always just different coming off of that. So if you get a little lost or maybe a little bit of lack of inspiration, one, definitely provide that information in the chat, because we have some amazing people with really great ideas that are really creative. And I think you'll come to find that someone else is maybe on a similar journey with you, kind of in that capacity, which is the elegant concept of Sonder and the part of Silk and Sonder. So maybe that can be helpful and inspirational. But at the end of the day, if what is easier is to just kind of take a break from some of these, give yourself a little bit of grace, because what you need may be different from week to week. And so that's always something to keep in mind. So we're going to start at the top of page 32 with This Week I Want to Feel. The way I like to frame this particular question is, it's how do I want to feel this time next week? And that becomes my kind of center goal, my baseline, my equilibrium, what I'm trying to reach, as I then add in the required to-dos, as I give myself the reminders of the weekly 3 goals, and then overlay those habits and activities that we want to do. But some people also just treat it as this week I want to feel. And then there's sometimes that this can be a little tricky. And so maybe it's best to fill out all of the other sections first, and then almost use this as kind of a summary of what you think your week is going to look like, or what sort of reminder you may need to help you get through the week. So it doesn't have to be in this particular order. And so sometimes that is a single word, sometimes it's your word of the year, sometimes it is leaning a little bit more into the theme for the month. So awareness, and I know it's one of those kind of connect with my days, was something that I think of when I think of awareness as well. Is there are days that you're just kind of wandering through? So it's, how can I ground it? How can I be more present in those days? Especially when, things are not nearly as clearly defined or clearly scheduled. Maybe it's the different percentages, maybe it's less of something, more of something, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's a particular definition. I think I saw Gloria in the chat, because hers is the one at the top with those really wonderful doodles, because as we say, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So maybe it's a sticker, maybe it's something that's gonna bring a bit of a smile to your face, especially if you're set to have a lot of tough things to get through the week. So I'm going to play a quick song, and if you want to add in what I like to see, the intentional optimism of the week with This Week I Want to Feel. We'll see you soon. So now that we have an idea of how we want to feel, or how we want to feel this time next week, we now overlay kind of what I think is like the building blocks to help support that. And I'm going to combine these two sections, the weekly major 3 goals and the weekly to-dos, because I do feel like a lot of people work with these kind of together, and I do think they complement each other really well. But just because it's a weekly major three goals does not need it means to be major, does not mean that they need to be three. You can have a bunch of different approaches to this because for me in particular, the weekly major three goals for me are the mental and emotional reminders that I want to give myself so that I can feel the way I want to feel this time next week. And then overlaying those to do things that are potentially required. And so, categories, I think, are a great way to approach this with a mind, body, and soul. Leaning into the alliterations of the month can also be great with the revisit, restore, and relax. Or maybe these are like the top three things that you just like absolutely need to do. So they get a little bit of a separate component to the to-do list. I feel like what usually shows up here are like taxes becomes a major goal the last couple of weeks. And same thing with kind of those type of follow-ups. So maybe these are just like the three big things that you need to get done. Maybe it is leaning into the frog, the fun, and the fierce. I love the 4Cs idea, which is a create, consume, cavort, and commune, which again is a variation of those categories because it is for you, for others, how you want to move, and what social aspects are there. And then the reason I feel like I like to connect these two sections, the example in the bottom left is a really great explanation for that because you have the different categories, excuse me, the different categories that are then overlaid with the to-dos that are going to support those different categories in a really fun gamification, which is the bingo boards that we love. Excuse me. And then maybe this is where those, again, gentle reminders are, the affirmations, the quotes, something that's going to kind of inspire you to feel the way you want to feel or to tackle that to-do list. And as I said, just because there are three major goals does not mean there need to be three. Maybe it's two major goals, and maybe you just need to switch the sections completely because your to-do list looks better on lined paper. And then you have the weekly to-dos, which these can absolutely be a traditional to-do list. Maybe it is more of a to-do list. Maybe you need a little bit of extra management when it comes to the to-do list, and that's where the Eisenhower matrix is a really great tool because it helps you sort and prioritize your to-do list into the different categories of do, decide, delegate, or delete. I was pretty excited to kind of go into the Eisenhower matrix because I get to delegate to people now. Even though it also means that just because I get to delegate to people, unfortunately, my parents can delegate it back. So I guess they also know the secret of the Eisenhower matrix as well, because there have been some delegated things that I just am not used to doing in a while, and that's okay. I will accept that. But maybe you want to have a dread list. Maybe it is kind of a decluttering for something specific, a specific thing that you're wanting to accomplish, especially as we move between seasons. Maybe it is, again, just a recategorization of your to-do list under calls, errands, follow-up, schedule. Or maybe it is just going into the needs and the wants, the things that you need to do, the things that you want to do, the maybe don't do this or do this instead kind of thought process. Or maybe your to-do list is elsewhere. Maybe it is in a larger kind of family calendar, family component. And so that's where you just need a little friendly reminder with the to-don'ts instead of to-dos. Same thing with maybe it's a to-be list, maybe it's a not to do, or even a breakdown of work and personal are the two different categories with the need and the want, or even just taking a moment to highlight those weekly wins or weekly present moments. So I'm going to let you work on this, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I love seeing all the different approaches as well as just the different conversations about the things you want to accomplish, how you kind of add a time scale to this, which I think is really helpful. Just always appreciate all of the inspiration that you all provide with how you kind of tackle these sections. Just because for me in particular, the to-do list changes like the items, but I don't usually change the approach too much. I bounce between the to-do list and the Eisenhower matrix. And then, like I said, my major three goals. I would say 90% of the time are those mental and emotional reminders, but sometimes I do need to prioritize certain things. And like I said, it was usually like get your taxes done, renew your passport. And I think I had something else random like that. So it was like those were the only time I've had those like three very specific call outs. So we're still on page 32, but we're now to the bottom of the habit and activity tracker. What I like about the habit and activity tracker is that you can absolutely use the monthly habit tracker with the weekly habit tracker a little bit hand in hand. The monthly ones are the ones that you want to do every single day. I then pull those monthly habits over into my weekly habit tracker and add the lens of reality. And that is how much time, energy, or effort can I realistically provide for those habits and activities, overlaying my to-do list, overlaying my workload, school load, even overlaying what the weather is going to be like. So I'm going to have to absolutely shift how I approach one of my habits, which is to move every day. Because previously I didn't have a car. I was commuting everywhere, either public transportation or was doing a lot of walking. So move became very intuitive just in that type of regard, because that was just how I was functioning. Here, not the case. I don't need to necessarily walk to acquire things. I mean, I could, but it's much further away and not really realistically possible. So I'm having to make those adjustments and actually set aside a little bit more time to do what I would say are more of the traditional kind of workout style things. So that is something that I think this has really helped me kind of identify which when are we going to do a long one. I've scheduled a Pilates class for tomorrow. So I was like, that is going to be a set workout. So having to make those adjustments is something that I think is really helpful, but still reaching the long-term goal of something that I want to do every single day. So maybe you want to add the goals. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a great approach to that, but you don't always need to add goals. Maybe it is this is where those kind of mental and emotional reminders are for the week. Maybe this is the one that you need a break on, especially if you're wanting to connect to your days or get a little bit more present. I am one of those that during holidays or vacations or when people come to visit, I don't tend to track my habits and activities as much just because they become very intuitive, very inherent, and that is perfectly fine with me. So maybe that's where the stickers come from. Maybe your weekdays look a little bit different than the weekends. And again, just because there are 5 lines does not mean you need to have 5 habits and activities. Maybe you just want to focus on 2 or 3 or 4. And then what I also love about this is also a great section to help you reconnect with your journal. If you're finding a little bit challenging to kind of work through your journal or check in with your intentions, you can certainly use this as a little bit of a Hansel and Gretel moment and kind of remind yourself to check in with your gratitude log, check in with the prompts. Set aside a couple minutes just to turn your brain off and do some of the coloring page. But this can certainly help with that, especially if you want to shift from just a random week to do that or tie into your monthly habit trackers. And then you all know I love my iconography, so I have repurposed my expense sheet to just kind of list the bucket list items or the adventure checklists that I go on. And that's because I feel like so much of these things are things that we do, and I just want to make them magical and special because even something as simple as opening the windows is one, great for your soul, great for your thought, but it's also something that we do, and it should get its little moment of importance and validating in your self-care journey. So I love kind of giving it the moment. And like I said, I don't particularly use the expense tracker, so I found this was a little bit better. But it was also something that just kind of propelled me. I would use these for inspiration to kind of sit and do something else, but it just made my life a little bit brighter, which is always nice. And then same thing with here, some more kind of self-care goals, the ideas that you can embrace, as well as some additional bucket list items with just the really pretty inspiration, because I really enjoy that idea. And again, I also love the validation of being able to watch a fun TV show or a movie and that you're really calling it a self-care moment. So I'm going to give you some time to work on your habits and activities, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Love seeing all the different habits and activities that you're tracking. I appreciate the energizing music. I actually originally had that song earlier in the social, but realized that was not going to be a good enough vibe. So, if you haven't attended one of my socials before, I like to start out kind of nice and gentle. And then by the end of it, if you are not chair dancing, then I have not done my job. So now we're going to flip over to page 33, which is the B side. I lovingly refer to it as the B side because when I talk about kind of reframing things with what you need or how you need to approach this, I realized that I was approaching this page and just not really connecting with it, not really finding a good use. I tried a ton of different ways and I was just kind of unnecessarily beating myself up on this page until I reframed it as a record. So we just completed listening to the A side. So these are the Billboard Top 100, Top 10. These spent, weeks as the number one song. And so that's what I like about that page. And now we flipped the record now to this page. And, in my opinion, these are great. They have their moments, but they may or may not break the top 100, and that's okay. But I certainly use them a lot. But it was certainly one of those that once I had that complete almost like shift in how I approached this. I got excited when I could genuinely use one of these sections. And then at the same time, I feel like I just relieved a lot of pressure from myself of having to complete everything to the point that I will sometimes rip this page out completely, which I know, blasphemy, but that's breaking with the perfection of really just what suits and what doesn't, what is needed and what is not. But you can absolutely use this page for it being written exactly as is. So you can use the meal plan for exactly as it is to plan your meals, or you can use it as more of a real-time tracker, especially if you have a particular healthcare journey or you're seeing some symptoms. So it's a way to kind of incorporate that when you work with a healthcare professional. I've used it in that capacity before when I just wasn't feeling great, trying to delineate what is potentially a superficial symptom or what is something that I triggered based on what I ate. So it's a really great tool for that. Maybe this is where you look for your one good thing inspiration or a weekly win, something that was really there. I know Bailey, one of our other facilitators, she kind of uses it more for where her meetings go and kind of that type of schedule coordination because it is a great template. Maybe you want to lean a little bit more into the meal plan for the soul. So that's where some of the prompts live. If you work with Jenny, our AI coach, she can provide some inspiration and ideas here. So maybe this is where those affirmations go. Maybe this is where the inspiration go. Maybe this is just where your general kind of reflection moments go. The daily doodles is a great way to turn off your brain. Set aside a little bit of time there, as Jen would say if you've attended one of her coloring socials. It's almost meditation for the brain. So giving yourself that kind of mental break or even a mental recharge, doing something creative, be it a haiku, be it a daily doodle, or if you're working on your doodle, I know we had a couple folks that were working on calligraphy as well. So maybe that's where something a little bit more creative lives. I absolutely use this as a clothing planner or like a vacation or a travel kind of clothing tracker. I absolutely love it for that. I tend to overpack when it comes to shoes, but by outlining what I'm going to wear all the days, I can rewear some of the things and I can now confidently say I have gone on trips with either only one or maybe even just two pairs of shoes, which is a massive win for me. So I'm just a big fan and I've just noticed that the packing goes easier, it goes a bit smoother. So, like I said, it's a great template when you need it. Maybe this is just kind of another to-do list. Maybe it's the highlights, the to-dos, or whatever kind of other journey you're on, be it habit stacking, chores, decluttering, anything in that capacity. The mind body health plan is also something that you can plan for, or it is something that you can track in real time. Maybe it is leaning into the alliteration with the walk and water Wednesday, frustration-free Friday, or even a self-care Sunday. Maybe it is, I really also like not only the sensory meditation kind of component that we did earlier, but I love this idea of asking yourself how you're feeling and then what do you need? Because I have found, and I think Jen brought it up as well, as like the simple questions of, are you hungry? Are you dehydrated? Have you drank water? Are you tired? kind of framing it that way because I do feel like I would get a little bit frazzled sometimes. And where I was working, because I worked from home, I was right next to the boiler, so it was really hot. And I realized I was becoming frazzled because I was getting hot. So I would go downstairs, cool off a little bit, and come back up. And it just the simple, like sitting there, having the moment of trying to like peel back, what can I control, what can't I control, and why am I feeling this way? I think is really helpful. Halt. Jen just put it in there. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And some more inspiration on the bucket list because maybe this is where a bucket list could live or some of those adventure lists. Maybe it is your reading log, a home declutter component, or just a spring cleaning component. Maybe again, this is where those prompts live, or even embracing the 7 types of rest. And then again, you all know I love the iconography, but I really liked these little reminders, 6 little things that aren't so little. And today will be a good day because, especially at the start of the week, I feel like those are some of the little reminders we need. And don't worry, I'll come back to this slide. And then we do have that last section, which is the shopping list. This absolutely does go hand in hand with the meal plan, in my opinion. But he said if I don't use it as a meal plan, I use it as that, travel packer, wardrobe packer, work tracker. And so really in the shopping list, that is where all the other items I need, and that's everything from business cards to all the chargers to all of the cables, cords, books, any kind of extra things that I need to do. Jen uses her for the bingos, which we do love any themed bingos. I did see that we had someone that had a birthday later this month and was going to kind of include some of those because we know that a birthday bingo is really fun. But you can also do celebrate the wins. Maybe it is the boring stuff bingo or just for fun bingo, a hobby bingo. Um, Maybe this is where the like small break reminders are in. Maybe it's a check-in bingo or the mental and emotional reminders or even the glimmer bingos, which we love, or someone kind of tracks their wardrobe or maybe their work from home clothing there as well. Because even I have fallen into that trap of like, how many times have I worn this sweatshirt to these type of events? So I know that that is a lot. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the slide, play one more song that's definitely going to be hopefully a little pep as well. And then we will end the social. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And we do have that very last section at the bottom of the page with the I am loving. So you can certainly share in the chat if you want what are the current things that you are loving. I am definitely loving seeing the sun a lot more. I just feel like the sun is different. It's like a warmer sun, not the colder sun. So that certainly makes me happy. And then, can you believe it? We have reached the end. And as always, we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. You all provide such amazing examples and inspiration. So if you feel like you want to share your pages, I know there would be lots of people who would certainly love to see it in the app. And we certainly like to scoop them up for our socials as well. And then we have our exclusive coming up, the Spring Clean Reset, which I do believe Jen is hosting. And that's going to be on April 21st. That does come with a fee. But as always, if you cannot attend it in person, you will get the link to the social as well, just so you can catch it on the recap. So this will be a great opportunity to do that. And then also one of our newer products, which is currently on sale, is a minimalist digital journal. And so that could be as a way to maybe get into the journal space. Again, it is the digital component, but maybe it's something that you want to kind of add a little bit more of your own twist. Maybe you need a break from the florals, or maybe your husband, partner, brother, or even teenagers are interested in trying to start working, incorporating that. You have that option there, especially that is compatible with a lot of different mechanisms in the digital space. And then this is a copy of my playlist. I will include the link in the chat once I go off of this. But we also are asking if you can leave a review if you love the products. If you have any feedback, obviously send that to hello@silkandsonder.com and we can see what we can do, because as we make those subtle changes across it, we always do listen and we read everything that's necessary. So thank you all again for joining us. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. You're going to have an amazing week, and I hope to see you at a future event real soon. Bye.